Games in the Evening. This is Jonathan Albin, and this is Game Master's Soapbox from NycosRPG. And today we have some serious stuff to talk about. I'm very, very excited about this information. I've been waiting for a chance to give it all to you. So let's jump right into it, shall we? All right, so what we are going to be talking about today is going to be, let's do a quick little title change here so we know what we're talking about. Drum roll, please. We're talking about a choice of gaming systems. Now, I know there are dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of role-playing systems that are available out there, but I believe there's nothing that you've seen anything like the Nycos RPG. And if you've seen any piece of it and you haven't understood it, I can illuminate even further than I have in the past. So today we're going to be talking about the particulars of it. So let's get started, shall we? I already said that once. I'm being redundant today. Alrighty, so what we're going to be talking about in particular is a set of rule systems that collectively are suitable genre-specific rules in each of the coming system books. And what do I mean when I'm speaking of system books? Well, gosh, there are, as many genres out there, I suppose, as there are game masters, because everybody brings their own flavor to it. But we're talking about an entire arsenal, an entire wave of new materials that will be coming in the coming months. We have genres that are covered by what shows here as 8 categories, and there will be more. But this will include dark shards, which is our fantasy setting, magic-heavy rules that explain how magical effects might be triggered in any genre. But although this is focused on the high fantasy environment, it does include a staggering 35 playable species and unlimited advancement and a skills list to beat the band. It's specifically a skills-based system, and it's like I said, nothing like you've ever seen. The downshift mechanisms will be dealing with vehicles and is a post-apocalyptic environment. Deep State is a modern era espionage super spy environment. Dread Signs is a Age of Wonder and specifically dark knowledge kind of an environment. Distant Suns is space opera, science fiction. Driftwood Saloon is American West, and even drifting into some of the odder genre specifics that go off of that. Dawn Soldiers is superheroes, World War II era technology, those kind of things. And then Dive Silent, which is I would say I'd call it a utopian culture philosophy of undersea life that might happen in the future. And each of these rule systems are going to have specific categories of rules. And so by combining these various system books, you'll be able to build a unique world specifically to match what you were expecting as a storyteller. Now, that means we're going to be able to get more gameplay thrills into a game session because you'll be able to gender bend, genre bend, I should say. You can get exactly what you want out of the game by picking materials from each of the different specific genres and then merging them together in new and interesting ways to get to what you want, and therefore be able to create more thrills and more excitement in your sessions than you might have ever seen possible. We're going to also provide you a greater expanse of creativity. These are system guides, and therefore they're not intended to be the completion of any game system. You should be able to plug and play, mix and match as the rule specifics work for you to give you greater creativity than ever achieved in any other system, because you'll be able to handpick which specific sets of rules you want to include in your overall game, and thereby give yourself and your players more opportunities for innovation than has ever been experienced. It's going to be a challenging, cinematic, and dynamic methodology to play, because you're going to be using quantum die rolling to create a much more realistic, comparative, and faster operational mechanic for conflict resolution and challenge contests and such. It's also going to herald the role-play revolution. I've been saying that it's coming for a while, and and not only am I heralding it, I am proclaiming it. This is a weather change in the way role-playing is done. You're going to be excited about it. It's blowing my mind, and it's going to be really useful to you. I have a considerable number of players that you'll be able to speak with when we go to do presentations and stuff, so you can learn how exciting it can be for them as well. And game masters can reach out to me right away and get part of the process going, so you can already start to add these functions into your games. The Dark Shards book, covering the fantasy setting, magic creation, and the initiation of the systems-based process, are available right now through NycosRPG.com. You can go to the website right now, download the persona sheet, no charge for that, and you'll have access to a PDF version of the rules in advance of the actual formal release of the property, so to speak. But it's available right now in PDF form for $10 from that site. And also realize that we're talking about possibilities that are endless. So I want you to discover with me what these might be. And so I'm going to be continuing to run game sessions on Saturdays at 9 a.m. here on Twitch, right here on the channel, NycosRPG, and you can become a part of it and get involved and play before you ever get to see it, before it actually gets out to publication. And if you stay through a session, if you are here from beginning to end, you will get a free copy of the rules emailed or sent to you directly as a PDF upon completion of one of the game sessions. So if you jump on at 9 o'clock, stay through the duration, you'll get a free set of the rules, absolutely free, just for being it. Now, I know there's a lot of drama and stress over certain role-playing games, products changing licensing rules and changing mechanics, and whether or not you can purchase it as an electronic copy or as a paper copy. Let me assure you that the paper copy is available. You can go to lulu.com and put in NycosRPG and purchase the book as a paperback copy right now. Now, this is the early version, so it doesn't have any graphics in it yet. So it's just the rules. It's still 148 pages of sheer useful information. So you may want to consider doing that. That's at lulu.com, and it's under NycosRPG. And you can also find the PDF, as I said, at NycosRPG.com. So finally, let's see, is there one more? Oh, that is, there it is. Here's one more. Now, I am the game master. NycosRPG is the chat channel that we're on right now, and it also is the way you can get to the information directly is right here through Nycos. So welcome to Nycos and welcome to the show. If you are on the air with me right now and want to ask any questions or to talk, feel free to drop a chat into the chat box. I will be here for a period of time, and I will be going back over all this information in greater detail. But I wanted to get this put together and out here as quickly as possible. So if you like what you're seeing, make sure you subscribe and follow so you get additional information on this. And if you need any information directly, you can DM me directly, or you can reach out through NycosRPG.com. All right. Alrighty, thank you everybody for hopping on with me right now. We're going to go over the system books in particular and talk about each one and what they represent and what they include in them. For some information, I will be posting a couple of pictures that will allow you to take a look at them and see what the story is about, so to speak. So let me go ahead and pull up a picture real quick here. No momento, por favor. While I do some mixing around here to get to the right page of pictures and all of that. So one more set of clicks here. Okay, I've held up the book here a couple of times, but it's kind of hard to see, so I want to put up an image that actually will make more sense so you can see what it is. Let's go. So this is what the Dark Shards manual looks like. And as a system book, this one covers the fantasy setting. The cover is actually representative of the Order of the Veils, one of the principal ways to get to utilizing magical effects right away in the game. The various colors of the icons down below, from black, red, blue, and so on, those are the archons of the Veils, and they represent the philosophical process, and each one of them represents a different way to communicate or integrate through magic in the world of Nykos. Now, there are nearly as many forms of magical effects as there are species in Nykos, and at 35, the numbers are rather stunning or staggering, if you will. But that was an idea of what the cover of the book prospectively will look like. It will probably go through iterations before we release, but that's my mock-up. So we're going to be going into them now. So Dark Shards is the is the fantasy setting, high magic. The players don't have, the system is not classless. The system is classless, so you don't have to pursue a specific course to get to magical effects. You can directly lead into them from anywhere. Each culture has its own approach towards magic. Each biome has a different series of potential magic effects that can be drawn upon. Every culture has its way of considering magic, and so it's a wide open system. It's intended to be such that the players can pursue their own course for advancement on a session by session basis, so that the player, not the game master, determines the course of the player's advancement in the game. Whereas the game master's objective is to maintain and drive whatever story he or she wants to put behind that advancement, whether that be a true sandbox where the players simply go where they want, or a more directed storyline of which there is a 8 iteration history that can be played upon, or they could actually pick a whole new course. Downshift, the second of the categories that is listed here, is the post-apocalyptic and dystopian engine. It covers things like vehicle motion, the integration of technology, the merger between technology and magic, the boundaries between each genre will be specific, so Downshift will not focus on the magic aspect, but simply talk about how you could be including it. But it will cover things like unit travel, distances, vehicle chases, things that would not be found, for example, specifically in a fantasy setting. It's going to be a lot more technology, a lot more grittiness. The concept will be somewhat advanced of our current culture, but it's going to embrace many of the tropes and the experiences that we've seen in films dealing with the near future. Shall we say, the concept of after a cultural collapse of some sort. Deep State is intended to be a governmental intrigue, mystery, spies, and private eyes, detective and investigations, some deep state black box activities, this kind of thing. Dread Signs is the concept of finding deep knowledge that opens up this universe to alternatives from beyond. So think along the lines of Lovecraftian works, or maybe some Stephen King kind of a feel to it. Definitely has some psychic aspects, some telepathy, telekinesis, some mental gymnastics go into Dread Signs. Distant Suns is science fiction from near to far reaches in terms of modes of travel, positions in time. It'll break them down so that your Distant Suns campaigns can be as simple as whether or not there's satellite activity, space platforms, and that kind of thing, all the way up to starship travel over the entire galaxy or universe for that matter. Driftwood Saloon is going to be talking about the particulars of the American West. It'll have some, for example, American Civil War aspect concepts. There will be some exploration of the advancement into the wilds. There will be some interaction with native populations and maybe even some look into the native mysticisms and things like that, done in a rather reverential way. I, as a person who has been an American all of my life, I've always had a fascination with the good and bad of the development of the Americas as we know it. And so the idea of investigating more deeply the interactions between the physical world and the spiritual world in American culture, this is the environment for that. It's also going to be the concept of missing gold, the concepts of Wild West activity. There's all kinds of things that are going to be fixated on the time period of basically the turn of the 19th century. Dawn Soldiers is going to be a look a little bit to the past as well, in that it will be looking at the period of post World War I into the end of World War II, considering the advancement of superheroes, super soldiers, um, the opposition to very clear villainous groups in the past, of which we're all familiar, and give us a chance to still target them, if you will, in terms of having a clearly defined enemy and exploring what that new advancements, had we reached superhero status in that time frame, might be. And then Dive Silent is something that I've recently added to the list. It's something that I've had working for a while, but in particular, it's going to be a utopian culture where humanity is submerged beneath the waves because of the advancements of our climatological challenges, and we have to deal with a world wherein the majority of our activities operate beneath the waves or near the coasts throughout the world. And so Dive Silence is going to have a lot of geopolitical intrigue, somewhat in a futuristic sense. So it's going to have a lot of science fiction and climatological, scientific conversations and such. So those are the genres that we currently have on the docket, so to speak, and we will be adding more as time goes by, as we need to fine tune the specifics of what each system book provides to expand the abilities of every storyteller to pursue the games that they would like to play. Now, if you haven't watched my show before, you know that a lot of times I much prefer a conversational tone rather than the monologuing. And so I try to be as exciting as I can be in this format, but I find that I tend to do much better in a great conversation. So let's have a conversation. If you want to, feel free to leave any questions or comments you want in the chat. Just shout out and tell me you're here. I would greatly appreciate to know who's taking this information in, because I want to provide you with whatever you need to assist you in developing your role play environment in your games groups to consider and embrace this new role play revolution. And when I say role play revolution, I know I've made several videos about the concept of quantum die rolling, and if you haven't watched any of those, I'll put a link up here. I'm going to make sure I leave my finger up long so I can figure out where to put it. But I'm going to put a tag right here in the YouTube version so that you can find specifically how to use the QDR, the quantum die rolling mechanism. Here's the shortcut, the short version. Quantum die rolling allows an individual dice roll, you roll and the opponent rolls, say in a martial combat. You actually are fighting. You each roll, and you roll against your relative success at your particular skill in that martial arena. And it is not a measure of your roll against a threshold to determine whether or not you've hit or not. It is simply whether or not your style of fighting and your ability has given you an opportunity to win the battle. Because if you roll a success and your opponent rolls a failure, the conflict is over, and you get to exert some number of conditions on the fighting environment. What that really means is that you, as a agent in the game, as a player, get to enforce what you would like to see happen within the scene, without overpowering it and making it more about how much work you as a player have done, and more. It's less on that, less about that. It's more about the visualization of how the game encounter has occurred. And there's a lot more to it. Like I said, recommend watching that video that I put up on the tag up there above. If you haven't seen that yet, you can also find it at NycosRPG on YouTube. All those videos are saved right there for you. So if you once this episode is over, if you want to go and check those out, I highly recommend it. Also, realize that I am going to be continuing to produce these episodes every night at 11 o'clock. We do some form of the Game Master's Soapbox, and this one has been to talk about your choice of system, which is going to be NycosRPG. So let me switch my title back, since we are done with the formal talk, and we go back to this being a conversation of whoa, what happened here? There we go. There we go. Game Master Soapbox. Okay, there we are. So, if you're with me and you've got something else you'd like to talk about, feel free to hop in at any time with that. Otherwise, I'm now going to go back through this entire presentation, kind of a shorter version, a quicker version, to make sure that I have covered everything for you. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to add them. We are talking about Nycos RPG, and from the Game Master Soapbox standpoint, we are talking about a system where you will have an entire wave of new role play supplement books called system books that will provide you with specific rules bands for different categories of genre, so that you can mix and match as you see fit for your game, or you can pick each one and run specifically games in each one. So Dark Shards is the fantasy setting. It's if you're already playing a standard role play game in a medieval fantasy setting, you just maintain this and you just move into it. That means whether you're playing an Eastern culture, Asian history kind of a story, or a modern Mesoamerican or whatever, if you're dealing with the fantasy aspects, including magic effects and such, Dark Shards will be the category book, system book you want. Downshift it actually is where I started. For me, that was a role-playing genre that was underrepresented when I first started game mastering back in the 80s. I started in the 70s, but my first interest beyond standard role-play fantasy was to go into role-play post-apocalyptic movies like Car Wars. Games like Car Wars, movies like Mad Max, movies like World Gone Wild. All of these post-apocalyptic, Demolition Man, etc., etc. They didn't have much of a means of being able to role play those aspects, and so Downshift is specifically covering that. It has really dynamic rules for car chases and driving across irregular terrain, and all of the nuances that you'd like to see in a role play game that you can't get to someplace else, you'll be able to grab and insert into your game through Downshift. Deep State. I've always been a fan of these James Bond, Ian Fleming stories, the nuances of specialty equipment and gizmos and such. Deep State is the place for that kind of thing. It even has an aspect of leaning into things like Men in Black or Supernatural. The idea here is that you're going to be talking about governmental involvement, possibly, maybe not, maybe some black ops kind of operations. Maybe we're talking about, as the name says, deep state, the idea of a government, super government, guiding the other governments. This will all be encompassed in the Deep State book. So it'll have information on counter-espionage and hacking, and a little bit of a direction towards things like William Golden's books on the possible uh, environment of cyberpunk, this kind of thing. Dread Signs is aimed a little bit older in the past. It is more of the steampunk era information, plus adding in the ancient knowledge and the elder gods and that kind of thing from a Lovecraftian Cthulhu kind of a genre turn, but not necessarily going into that specific. It gives you that same era and technology and perhaps some of the elegance of the steampunk environment that you wouldn't get in the others. Distant Suns, as I've mentioned before, is a sci-fi environment, but it spans from the early space race through the Star Wars programs and stuff here, all the way up to large ship conflict and vessel versus vessel combat in modern space, hyperspace, all those kinds of things, and will be really a place and an opportunity to run anything from Firefly to Federation of Planets to Federation and Empire and Alliance and all kinds of stuff. Driftwood Saloon again is American West, even into the Weird West, dealing with cultural variances, things that were new discoveries that were made in the early or the late. I see this number wrong. Late 17th century into the 18th century into the 19th century. There we go. And then Dawn Soldiers is World War II era superheroes, the dawn of the concept of superhuman capability, from everything from superhuman intellect to superhuman strength and so on. And then finally, Dive Silent is a utopian environment that looks forward to the world as it might be with the ecological collapse and the destruction of our planet as we know it, and how we have to adapt to a world in an undersea environment. So I've gone through them twice now. All right, so the point here is that if you're a game master, you're going to want to get more gameplay thrills in your games, and so by expanding or twisting or adjusting your genre mix, you'll be able to make for a more engaging gameplay environment. You'll have more creativity to develop what you have in your head into a playable environment for your players. It'll be a challenging, cinematic, and a dynamic way to play that hasn't been seen before. And it will herald the role-play revolution that's being triggered by the development of quantum die rolling and a completely different way of looking at dice games in particular, and dice games in general, and role-playing in particular. And it talks about all the possibilities that the NycosRPG will be offering. So if you're tired of dealing with the politics of which OGL is going to be operating, which set of rules are going to allow you to create what you want, this is a creativity enhancing place, and we're going to be going back to playing the role-playing games instead of having to worry about the politics of which game system you use. So I want to thank you again for being here. I'm Jonathan Albin, and this is NycosRPG. And if there's anything else you've got to add, feel free to add me to chat in here. If you see this video and you like it, you'll go ahead and leave a message for me in the comments box. I love to interact with you, and I would look forward to any questions you might have. In the meantime, it is right at a half an hour, so this is actually a pretty short version. If you have anything to add, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, I will see you in the next episode. Do remember that generally at 9 p.m. I will do Session 0 Chronicles, which will be additional information about the Nykos environment and the history and lore of the Nykos world for use in your roleplay game or to become a part of one of mine. And then at 11 p.m. every night, I do a Game Master Soapbox episode similar to this one, where I give you additional information on what's coming up. And usually I have some kind of rant or concern that I have that I want to get out. But right now, my biggest rant, if you will, my biggest excitement is to let you know what's on the horizon and what's going to be here to be able to be used to play in your role play games in the future. I want to thank you again for being here. If you got anything to go ahead, Ed. It's one of those things where I want to end the show, but I have a viewer right now. I want to make sure if you've got something you'd like to say, go ahead and place it into the into the chat box. We're glad to respond to it. If not, please reach out to me whenever you need. And if you want more information, go to NycosRPG.com, where you can download for free the player persona packet. And if you want to, the established rules for Dark Shards are currently available there as a PDF for a $10 price tag. Or join me on Saturday mornings and get a copy for free by playing a game with me. So we'll hope to see you then. Realize that real life is for those who can't handle NycosRPG, and I'm hoping to see you soon. This is Jonathan Albin.